So, the Bethesda Microsoft sale has been finalised, and PlayStation gamers everywhere are mourning the fact that, apparently, future Bethesda games will be Xbox Game Pass exclusive. This is bad news if you're one of the 8 people on planet Earth who successfully camped out outside a GameStop for 2 weeks to get a PlayStation 5 with the sole intent of playing Starfield. This really isn't your year. Except, while the gaming press as a whole has been quick to report on comments from head of Xbox Phil Spencer about Bethesda's future exclusivity, things aren't really that simple. Not all Bethesda games will be locked onto Xbox platforms for the rest of eternity. Ultimately, it's complicated. Spencer's actual quote was,
"So obviously I can't sit here and say every Bethesda game is exclusive, because we know that's not true.
So far so good. So which games are exclusive and which aren't?
There's contractual obligations that we're going to see through, as we always do in every one of these instances. We have games that exist on other platforms, and we're going to go support those games on the platforms they're on. There's communities of players. We love those communities, and we'll continue to invest in them. And even in the future, there might be things that have either contractual things or legacy on different platforms that we'll go do."
Okay, so games that have already released and community-based online games. So good news, PlayStation 5 owners. You get to keep Fallout 76? Yay! But there's more to it than that. If you take a shot of caffeine and push through the 1 hour, 15-minute roundtable presentation, in which Bethesda and Microsoft heads explain the buyout, you'll learn a few more interesting things. I don't blame anyone for passing on this wonderful opportunity, because at around the 30-minute mark they start discussing which are their favourite business meetings. It's a really dry presentation.
That is my absolute favourite meeting, and I just, like, the collaboration and what comes out of that, and the spirit of that is something really special.
You also get a quick rundown of all the various studios that Microsoft has bought which fall under the Bethesda umbrella. And I have to say, it is a little disheartening. For all that the presentation tries to put a positive spin on things, we all know that this is just a list of games that won't be appearing on PlayStation 5 anytime soon. No more Wolfenstein, no more Dishonored, no more Evil Within. Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo will still first release on PlayStation, but after a couple of years the Bethesda releases on PlayStation 5 are going to dry up. I do feel bad for Todd Howard. I know he's not the most popular guy in gaming because he has the gall of trying to over-promote his games, but this presentation, well, it might just be me, but I think I can see the absolute fear in his eyes. He knows he's going to get the blame for this. He knows that when Starfield launches as an Xbox Game Pass exclusive, there'll be a million memes of Todd Howard releasing Skyrim on a toaster so that he can use it to burn all the PS5 copies of Bethesda games. But a fair chunk of the presentation also deals with games that probably won't end up being exclusive. Fallout 76 is one, yes, but Elder Scrolls Online is another. Games that rely heavily on their online community are going to do best when they reach the widest possible audience. Now, of course, these aren't the games that Bethesda is best known for, but they're something. They leave the door open for future Bethesda releases on PS5 and other platforms in future. Because here's the thing that Phil Spencer isn't mentioning about console exclusives. They have a relatively short shelf life. Games age quickly, and a few years, indeed even a few months after a game's initial release, its value to the company drops dramatically. This is why we've been seeing many games companies, Microsoft included, bringing their games to other platforms after a few years on the market. Their value as system sellers decreases, and it makes more sense to release them to a wider audience. I think my favourite example of this is Cuphead, made by Studio MDHR. This game was never going to be a system seller. So even though Microsoft had the developers under an ironclad exclusivity contract, given time they were willing to let Studio MDHR bring Cuphead first to Switch and then to PlayStation. It just made sense. This cuts both ways. After selling more than a few PlayStation 4s at launch in 2017, Horizon Zero Dawn eventually came to PC last year. Ditto Death Stranding, a game which Sony helped to fund, but which was eventually brought to Steam, because it's genuinely better for games companies to only keep games exclusive for a short time. This is something that Microsoft absolutely understands. Last year, Phil Spencer said, "Gaming is about entertainment and community and diversion and learning new stories and new perspectives. I find it completely counter to what gaming is about to say that part of that is to lock people away from being able to experience those games, or to force someone to buy my specific device on the day that I want them to go buy it, in order to partake in what gaming is about. Gaming is bigger than any one device." Of course, it's one thing to announce exclusives are bad, but purchasing Bethesda is in large part about making sure these games are exclusive to Xbox Game Pass. Eventually, though, Starfield will no longer be the newest, hottest, freshest addition to Xbox Game Pass, and Microsoft will look at other ways to make money from the game, such as releasing it on other console platforms. It just makes sense. And that might not be all. It does feel like the Xbox console itself doesn't quite mesh with Microsoft's business plan here. After all, the company has made no secret of the fact that they want to be the Netflix of games. We know this because Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella once said of their plans, we describe it as, shorthand, Netflix for games. Get someone to buy Starfield one time on any console, and you'll sell them the game once for $60, plus DLC or what have you at a later point down the line. But get them to subscribe to Xbox Games Pass, and they'll pay you $15 a month every month until they die. That's a lot of money to squeeze out of your customer base. Frankly, it would not surprise me if, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but eventually, we get some form of Xbox Games Pass, first on Nintendo Switch, and then on PlayStation. That seems to be the direction Microsoft is heading. As with Bethesda's community games, their Fallout 76s and Elder Scrolls Onlines, the more players you can hook, the more money you can make. And that often means bringing your fancy subscription service to other platforms. The question then, and this is probably the big reason why Microsoft is so hesitant about releasing Bethesda games on PlayStation, is if you can get Xbox Game Pass on a PS5, why own an Xbox? Until the company has figured out that particular little wrinkle, we're unlikely to see Starfield on PlayStation. There was, though, one other interesting thing mentioned in the roundtable discussion, which I think sheds light on Microsoft's plan for Bethesda. It was a blink and you'll miss it moment. Very briefly, around the 44-minute mark, Phil Spencer talks about how eager he is to get the Doom developers id Software talking with 343 Industries, the makers of the upcoming Halo Infinite.
And I think about them collaborating and working and talking with the Coalition and 343 and just like the first-person shooter, third-person shooter space that we have, the studios that are there. I think just kind of an amazing capability. The other thing I get really excited about with id that we haven't really talked a lot about is the future of id tech. And what could that mean inside of Xbox?
I've seen commenters online talking about how this new buyout means we might get a Master Chief Doom Guy crossover, but it seems like there's more to it than that. We could very well get a Halo game that is, in part, developed with support from the team at id, because Microsoft's many various studios aren't going to remain separate forever. There's going to be some sharing of staff, some merging, some restructuring. Bethesda is, over time, going to become integrated into the Microsoft machine, to the point that the two are inseparable. Is that a bug or a feature of this buyout? Maybe that's the question I could see in Todd Howard's eyes. Anyway, I've been Matthew for DualShockers. Be sure to head into the comment section and tell me how wrong I am, because you are probably right.